Hey guys, it's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and today I'm going to be comparing luxury versus practicality. On the left-hand side of me, I've got a 2024 Lexus IS300 luxury package versus a 2025 Toyota Camry XSE hybrid. Let's take a peek, see which one works better for you and your family. Let's talk about front ends for both the IS and the new Camry. So I'm gonna start with the IS first. I'm going to say that the front end of this vehicle, after doing a little deep dive online, I have known that basically when it comes to the luxury model of the IS, it's not as common as the F Sports, and the front grille is actually a little bit different on the luxury package than the regular F Sport or just the base IS300. Everything that I've seen online, people have talked about this chrome piece going all the way down to the bottom, matching in with this kind of dark gray front grille. I'm actually gonna be a huge fan of this, especially paired up with this really cool reverse checkmark headlight. One thing to note is whenever you see a new IS on the road, which I think it's gonna be the 23 and above, is gonna have this new front end design with this headlight. I think the DRLs look insanely great on a new IS300. Now, this with the front end, it is a very, very large front grille. When I originally saw this vehicle, I wasn't necessarily hugely attracted to the front grille, but now actually seeing it in person, seeing the body lines with the hood of this vehicle to the front end, I actually think Lexus has done a very, very great job. And it's actually one thing I will be taking over the Camry is going to be the front end and the headlights on the Lexus versus the new 2025 Camry. Now, onto the front end of the new Camry. If you're looking down here at the headlights, I'm a big fan of the new design. I did a Prius video not too long ago, and they kind of share the same headlight. So it starts on the bottom, loops back up into the bottom end of your hood. I think it looks really, really cool and obviously gives it a very, very great new front end design. Now, the front grille is very different for this year as well. It's basically the newest addition to the 2025 Camry and something that I think makes the car look very, very different. One thing I will be giving Toyota kudos for is that on the front end of the new Camry is that this actual functional air vent will actually be a little bit larger than the IS. I think the IS has a small little insert, doesn't look bad, but obviously when it comes to a front functional vent, you want something a bit larger. So I think Toyota's done a very, very great job, especially adding this interesting little splitter on both corners of the front bumper. I think they've done a very, very good job at keeping the vehicle very practical, yet a very, very aggressive look to such a practical everyday driving car. Now, talking about wheels onto the Lexus versus the Camry, I will be saying that on the IS luxury package, you get this very, very multi-spoke silver looking wheel. Now, I'm not a huge fan of it if you're gonna ask me for my honest opinion. I think there's just too much going on all in one, and there are so many spokes onto this alloy wheel. So I do like the design of Toyota over Lexus on this one, especially with the different colors too. I think an all one color wheel, whether it's all black, that's probably my favorite if you're gonna do a solid color. However, if it's gonna be fully silver, for me, I'm just not a big fan of all the spokes and the color on this wheel for this vehicle. Now, taking a peek onto the side profile of the Lexus IS300, the one thing I will be saying is that the lines on the side of this vehicle versus the Camry are a little bit different. They're actually a bit more rounded off on the Lexus here, and they don't make the vehicle look as aggressive as the Camry does, which is interesting. So you're looking for something that is a little bit more sleek in that sense. Maybe this vehicle is more suited for you. Now, one thing I will say that I wish Lexus changed is down here on your lower rocker panel. For Toyota, you can obviously get this as a gloss black on the Camry. So the gloss black, I think for me, matches the mirror caps a little bit better and kind of well rounds the vehicle and makes the vehicle look actually a little bit more expensive. I'm actually interested to think that Lexus didn't do that on this vehicle because the matte plastic definitely does not look as expensive versus the gloss. Now, talking rear end of the Lexus IS300, I'm actually going to be saying I am very in favor for the rear of this vehicle. One thing to note on the vehicle that I think looks crazy good is their Lexus lights are phenomenal. So front end are great, rear end I also think they did a very good job. If you look on the rear here, you will see that their brake light actually comes across the entire stretch of the rear of the vehicle. So if you're ever driving the nighttime and you see this kind of little like horizon almost on the rear end of the Lexus, I think they've done a very, very good job to show off what this vehicle could look like with the lights on. Now, a couple things I will say though that I'm maybe not so in favor for is is going to be down here on the rear bumper. I think that this not being white or just extending this down a little bit more would obviously make the vehicle look a little bit more well-rounded in my opinion. You guys can let me know down below what you think. But what I will say is having such a large trunk as plastic, I know why manufacturer would do that. So that obviously if you get into an accident on the vehicle, you're not replacing, you know, a massive full painted, full body framed panels. It's just more so a plastic bumper cover, which I can understand. However, on a Lexus, and especially at this price point, getting into a new IS and as a luxury package, I would think that maybe this would be deleted and they'd actually add in the actual panels of the vehicle painted in the color that you order your new Lexus in. Now, looking into the trunk space of the IS300. Now, I put these chairs in the Camry beforehand to see what the space on the inside can do and what that looks like while actually holding something in the trunk of the vehicle. We put the same chairs, same configuration into the rear of this vehicle, and what I will say is that the trunk actually looks a little bit smaller actually in this one. It's not as deep, doesn't go as far back into the vehicle. I'm definitely interested to see what it looks like now on the inside and the rear seat of the Lexus, because I was talking about that on the Camry beforehand. That's a little bit tight for someone at my height. So I'm interested to see obviously if the maybe a little bit smaller trunk space has obviously opened up the rear for any rear passengers into the back of a Lexus. All right, now looking onto the rear of the 2025 Toyota Camry. So let's begin XSE. You're gonna be seeing down below here, it's gonna say XSE all in black, which I think is gonna be a really good pop, especially on a vehicle that is all black. Now, looking onto the rear of the vehicle, I'm going to say this is probably the only part of the vehicle that actually looks similar to the outgoing model. So this being a 9th generation Camry, I still think that the rear end is probably the only area of this vehicle that you can actually see a comparison versus the outgoing 8th generation Camry. Now, looking at trunk space on this vehicle, because obviously this being one of our larger sedans, you still need a lot of trunk space for practicality to have this vehicle as a daily driver. Now, if you open up the trunk, the cool thing is it's now centered to the right of the logo. It actually used to be under the logo before. Now it's all the way here over to the right. Now we have some lawn chairs put in here. 2 big ones, a little small one. However, you can still see how far back this trunk actually goes. So if you're gonna use it for groceries, going to the beach, transporting anything, you're definitely still gonna have a lot of space into the new design for a Toyota Camry. Okay, now taking a step into the inside of the IS300 luxury package. So, a couple things to note off the bat is that comparing this to the new Camry, I was saying that with the outgoing model for the Camry and the new redesigned generation as a 9th generation Camry, that everything feels a bit more premium in that vehicle. Now, I think that's still very, very true against the Camry. What I will say is that this inside feels 5 times the premium feel like the Camry does. For example, the feeling of the leather, the feeling of the dash, the steering wheel, kind of where you're sitting and how you actually feel inside the seats, which are super, super soft and very, very comfortable. It does feel very, very luxurious. However, is it worth the price difference? That's obviously up to you guys. Now, looking on the inside, I will say though, my parents have had Lexuses before in the past. I've obviously driven quite a few Lexuses because we do obviously have quite a few used ones here at our dealership. And I will say is that for 2024, the inside of this vehicle really looks the same as other previous Lexuses. You still have this little touchpad down here. The backup camera still isn't, as great as you'd expect a 2024 model to be. The way things are laid out, the way the knobs looked, all the shifters look. I remember my papa had like an ES350, and it was like a 2014 or a 2015, and his shifter looks very, very similar to this one, which is interesting how they haven't changed it in obviously so many years. It is laid out very, very nice. The way that this all feels and the way that you actually feel inside the vehicle, I think Lexus has done actually a pretty good job. A couple of things definitely to note though is that you only have one sunroof. There's no panoramic moonroof in this vehicle. So obviously if you see my videos before, I'm a huge fan of having that, sunroof that extends into the second row. Now, I was doing a couple comparison videos and looking at a couple of videos before actually taking this video and shooting this video here, and people were saying that there is a hump on the right leg of the driver. So I'm a bit taller, and obviously the way my leg sits down, there actually is this little hump on the bottom where my leg would go. I've seen some people say they don't mind the hump. They kind of put their leg up a little bit more and they don't feel it. Well, I do feel it, and I will actually say it's not the worst thing. I know that it's not there for a driver's leg rest, or maybe if it is, you guys can correct me in the comments. However, people have said that that's just the way that the transmission actually goes underneath the vehicle down the center of it, and that's why they had to kind of incorporate the hump into the interior of the vehicle. With that being said, on the inside of this car, you still are getting quite a few great options: cooled seats, heated steering wheel. But if you're going to compare this versus the Camry, for example, which comes in at a much higher price tag, you don't get JBL sound system. There's no heads-up display, no panoramic sunroof. So for me, I'm gonna go Toyota on this one all day long as the interior. I wish they had maybe some of the finishes of the Lexus inside the Camry, but you know, the screen's smaller, your multi-information display, it's not digital. It has the old school needles on it, which I know you can option between F Sports and whatnot. I think Toyota has done a very good job comparing to this vehicle in particular. Now, the one thing I also will say is that I drove this vehicle on the weekend to kind of get a driving feel for it, because obviously, you know, this does drive a little bit differently than the Camry. One thing I will say is that the turn signals are very interesting as well. So typically on a turn signal, you push it down once and it'll blink 3 times for you to change a lane. And if you push it down twice, it typically will stay down there until you've made your turn, and then it'll snap back up like most turn signals. But a Lexus, you actually push it twice down and it comes back up for you. So it's a little weird learning curve to note. That's one thing when I was driving, I was like, why is the signal not turning off for me? So I think it's a very, very interesting thing to note and something that I definitely noticed when I was driving this vehicle. Okay guys, so taking a peek onto the 2025 Toyota Camry. So jumping inside, it definitely feels very familiar with the outgoing model. Only thing I will be saying is that everything now feels a little bit more premium, I would say. You feel the steering wheel, you feel the leather, you feel the seats. Everything they've done and the finishes that they've left on the vehicle definitely make the car feel a little bit more expensive, which I think is a really, really nice touch that Toyota is doing. It kind of more feels like a Lexus in a sense. This versus the outgoing model, a lot of things have changed. So standard on an XSE model, for example, JBL sound system, cooled seats, heated seats, full panoramic moonroof on the vehicle. You're getting a 12.3 touch display with wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM. You have all the new features and the new safety sense features. You actually have TSS 3.0, which definitely needed an update from the outgoing model, having 2.5 plus. So having this and all of the newest features obviously will be keeping you and the people inside the vehicle very, very safe. The one interesting feature I will say is that centered behind the actual steering wheel, there's a small little screen, and on that screen, it is actually going to be something called your driver monitor camera. What this does, it will actually be looking directly at you, and if for some reason you are looking not directly in front of you on the road and you're looking to your right, it will actually alert you to put both hands on the steering wheel and look forward, which I think is a really interesting thing. They've added this onto the Crown, they've added this onto the Grand Highlander Hybrid Max, and I think a lot of our newer redesigned models are going to be having one of these features, and I think it's a really interesting one. So that's one interesting new thing that I wasn't used to driving the new Camry. However, when you're sitting in here, it feels luxurious. That's the easiest way I could kind of put it. Everything about that, the way things are laid out with the new screens and the improvements that they've made. Obviously, this is being a top of the end model for us, but even the outgoing previous generation, you know, you'd start from a 7-inch screen and you could work up to a 9-inch screen. Well, now in the new 2025, you start at an 8-inch screen and you can work your way all the way up to a 12.3-inch screen. So they've definitely added a couple new things here. Talking about the seats, that's one interesting thing. Onto an SE or an SE upgrade model for a Camry, you'll be getting a white insert down the middle of your seats. It's kind of like a mixed soft text with a little bit of fabric into the seats. These ones are all black. Now in an XSE, you can option it to be all black, or you can actually still get cockpit red, which is the full red interior Camry, which was very, very popular beforehand. I actually like the black. The red is very, very bright. So for me, having the vehicle outside being black, I like the inside also being black. I think they've done a very, very good job to keep it simple, but also still kind of adding a more sporty design with the red option interior. Now, I've done a Crown review before. The Crown sits a little bit higher up than the Camry, but it definitely makes the vehicle feel a little bit higher up, like you kind of are in an SUV. However, in the Camry, the way that you're sitting now and the way that the car feels and how you feel in the vehicle, the one reason I think I like the Crown as well is that it felt a little bit more spacious. I think they've now added that into the Camry. So I would actually be taking a Camry over the Crown. I think they've done a very, very good job at laying this vehicle out very, very well. Now, a couple other things to note. Standard on this package, JBL's of course, heads-up display is a big one. The 12.3-inch screen with your MID in front of you as well. I think that they have really catered this to not only the driver, but also anyone else inside the vehicle. So it definitely could be a very, very good option for you and your family down the road. Hey guys, I know you guys are enjoying the video, but please do not forget to like and subscribe so we can become the #1 Toyota YouTube channel on earth. All right, guys, now into the rear of the IS300 luxury package. Couple things to note. Versus the Camry, I definitely have a bit more headspace back here. So I definitely feel like I would be a little bit more comfortable with the more roomy feel of this vehicle. But what I will say is that I left my seat, just like the Camry, were exactly where I was sitting in it comfortably, like I'd be driving the vehicle. And I am very, very squished back here. My legs are right up against the seats. I maybe could push it forward a little bit. However, it's definitely a little bit crammed in here. I couldn't imagine having, two other people in here with me, because it definitely would feel a little bit tight. Now, you would think of a vehicle that comes in at such a higher price point, you'd have a lot more, luxurious things in the back here. But, you pull this down and your cup holders pop out in a very interesting way, clicking this button, and then they obviously come forth like that. You get the cup holders in the rear of the Camry as well. You have no storage in any of the doors. You just have the little door handle to hold onto. You've got 2 vents, no charging ports. Got a couple lights back here, I guess, which is a nice touch. However, you'd be thinking at a vehicle at this price point, maybe the back seat would offer maybe a little bit more. Again, the only thing I can say is that it definitely feels luxurious. The leather, the finishes inside the vehicle are very, very nice. But maybe this is suited to someone who has maybe, no one in the back seat, or someone with, smaller children, or maybe just no kids at all. However, being in the back, it definitely feels a little bit more crammed versus the Camry. Jumping into the rear of the 2025 Camry. So, a couple things to note. I've got the armrest down here. Again, I'm a bit taller. I am right on the cusp in the back seat here. So I don't really know if I slouch down a little bit, maybe it'd be a little bit more comfortable for me. But if I was actually sitting completely upright, I would be kind of right on the roof of the new Camry. So I think I'd be definitely more suitable to go in the front of the vehicle rather than the rear. With that being said though, it's still very, very comfortable. It's still very, very spacious. Now, obviously just being myself in the vehicle right now, if you added someone into the second seat in the middle here and then one on the other side, it might be a little squishy back here. But just for myself right now, or if I had one other person next to me here, I think it'd be more than fine and I would be comfortable to go on a nice ride. Now, a couple things I will say, it's interesting onto the XSE, because if you go XLE on a Camry, you get a couple more luxury features. But I thought it's interesting on the XSE, they didn't add heated rear seats onto the Camry. I thought they probably would for the new design. I know that, that's a common feature nowadays, is having heated rear seats. They don't have that on this vehicle, which I think is interesting. You look down here and you feel around, you've got a couple USB-C ports. You got 2 of them actually, so you can flip them down. Obviously you can plug in your stuff, but that's really it back here. There's no, climate control. There's just some vents down here, some cup holders in the center. If you guys have watched the videos before, you guys know that I love a moonroof that comes all the way back into the second row. And I think that if that wasn't into the second row, you would feel a lot more claustrophobic in the back of this vehicle. With that being said, I still think they've done a very, very good job redesigning this vehicle. For a vehicle to be around for as long as the Camry has been, to have that going on the market for its 9th generation, it hasn't had a redesign since 2018. I think that there's a lot of high hopes from, customers of Toyota, and obviously such a large brand. And people were wondering what's going to happen when they redesign the Camry. Is it going to look, over the top? Is it going to be too futuristic? Is it going to look like the previous generation? That's a question a lot of my customers have asked, was that, what's going to happen for the new Camry? I'm so happy to not only be able to drive one, have one here as a test drive unit, because this is what this vehicle is here for. It's a test drive unit vehicle, but I think they've done a very, very good job. The only thing that I'm necessarily not the biggest fan of, I'm going to say, is yes, the back room here is not the greatest for headroom. I don't like how there's no heated seats in the back, but other than that, I think this would be a very, very good practical car for you and your family moving down the road. Okay guys, let's talk some differences over some numbers with these 2 vehicles. On the Lexus, you'll be getting a 3.5 V6. It's gonna be making about 260 horsepower, but you'll be averaging about 10.6 liters per 100, which is premium fuel. You have to remember that as well. Versus the Camry, which is gonna be a 2.5 4-cylinder, making about 232 horsepower, averaging about 5.6 liters per 100. All right guys, to wrap it up, let's talk pricing for these 2 models. The IS300 luxury package for 2024 model is coming in at $58,655. Obviously, you still have a few things to add, like tax, licensing, freight, and PDI. But if you're going to take that number versus the Camry coming in at $44,250, plus obviously the other taxes and fees, I'm going to be saying, on my personal opinion, the Camry is going to be my choice between the 2 of them. I think that talking about the price difference and the different features you get between one and the other, I think Toyota's done a very, very good job and they've put a very, very competitive vehicle that's been around for so long against obviously their rivals, which is Lexus, and they have done a very, very good job to kind of even out the playing field for a full-size sedan. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching this comparison video between the Lexus IS300 luxury package versus the 2025 Toyota Camry XSE. Please do remember to like and subscribe so you do not miss any more of our Toyota related future content, and we'll see you guys in the next video.